Okay, on the math section, there's going to be a fair amount of exponent type questions, and that's these little numbers right here. And it's going to bounce around on me. There we go. That little number right there. And all we got to think about that number is a repeater. So 4 to the second power, sometimes called 4 squared. If it's 2, it's usually called squared. We think of that as a repeater. And there's so much multiplication in algebra that it just means if that says 2, that's the number of times we write it. So 4 times 4 is 16. 4 to the set. Let me get rid of that so it's clear. Get rid of that. There we go. 4 to the second power is 16, or 4 squared is 16. If it was 2 to the fourth, all this little number is telling you is how many times to write it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So 2 to the fourth, and there's no cute name for that, like squared or cubed, would be 16. These are important numbers, and we want to imagine like a number 2 is laying down on the piece of paper and a number 2 is laying down on top of that 2, and we can't tell how many are stacked there, and that's what that number does, that there's 4 2s standing on top of each other and they all multiply off each other. So it's just a convenient, quick way. Instead of writing 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, you just write 2 to the fourth power. Then there's some tricky parts. This is a tricky part. So -1 is just a number like any other number to the third power. Means when we see these parentheses, the purpose of these parentheses is to Scotch tape this minus sign or this negative sign to that number, so that when we repeat the 3, it's -1 times, my times dot went a little screwy on me, times -1 times -1. Now, this is the kind of stuff we could type into the fancy calculator that they give us that I cannot find. I don't know where I put it. So we can just type this into a calculator and we'd be fine, especially with the calculator they give us because it's such a powerful calculator. -1 times -1 is 1, because a negative times a negative is a positive. But we don't have to memorize. I mean, for this, we don't have to memorize that because we can just type it into our calculator. 1 times -1 is -1, because a positive times a negative is a negative. So when the signs are different, the result is negative. So that's why this answer is -1. Now here's the tricky part. The tricky part is if they had written it like this without the Scotch tape, without that Scotch tape, which is the parentheses, then things would change. So this says repeat the 1 3 times. Now the answer is going to turn out to be the same, but most of the time it's not. And then this negative side is just hanging out on the outside waiting for an answer, and then they're going to make it negative. So with no Scotch tape, which is the parentheses, it's just 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. And then this negative comes along and goes, okay, I'm just going to go boop and make you negative. Now that looks like a 7. There we go. And that becomes -1. So an example where this would be different would be in this, -2 to the fourth. This Scotch tapes -2, or the negative to the 2, because they're saying we are all in the same space, parenthesis space, whatever that is. So -2 times -2 times -2 times -2. Oops, forgot the negative. -2 times -2 is +4. Times -2 is -8. Negative 8 times negative 2 is a positive 16. Calculator does all the work, so we don't really have to do that math. Negative 2, with the calculator's got the ability to write those parentheses in there. So negative 2 inside parentheses would be 16. Now I'm going to erase this junk down here, give myself some room. This one is going to be a different answer because the 4 goes to the 2, but not the negative. So this would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which still works out to 16. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. And then this negative comes sweeping in at the end. You know, this is the one person where everybody's having fun at the get together, and then there's that one person who jumps in at the end and just makes it all negative. So this one equals negative 16. This one equals 16. So we have to keep our eye on that when there's a negative involved. This thing means Scotch tape, taping those things together, and it gets repeated. But if it's not there, this is that, you know, that ant that just can't have fun. Just takes everybody's fun and does that to it. Okay, so I'm going to pause it, or I'm going to stop it, and we're going to do a different thing about exponents here in a second.